Hello everybody, Reggie Time here, and today we're going to be looking at some hands I played on the 25NL GG Russian Cash Street only yesterday. Some of them I remember quite well, some of them probably are less memorable to me. So yeah, it's a bit of just a review of what I did and why, and then a couple will be I don't remember this hand, so what do I think I should do? That type of thing, the usual demented shit that I come out with. I'm not playing in these games regularly. I'm playing in some pretty soft games on like a Euro site, on the skin of a Euro network. I was playing slightly higher stakes than this, and it's going well. But because I game select really well and the games are pretty damn soft, I spoke about it in the last thing I did. I find my game kind of decays a little bit, degrades, however you want to put it. So I'm also like mixing in some of these games. I played a little bit on Party Poker in the last video, some GG, just through the day when I don't have time for a long session. And I'm treating it just as like development money, as like putting the work in and not expecting to make money from it, but helping keep my game sharp. It's a bit like a golfer or a snooker player or what have you. They don't get paid for practicing. This is like my form of practicing. I'm not expecting to get paid for it. If I break even or slightly better, great. If I lose a little bit, then whatever, fine. It doesn't matter too much because I'm not expecting to win them. My win rate in these games isn't good. I'm probably expecting to win a little bit, but not a lot. Maybe I win a little bit more now. I'm using it as like practice rather than like getting frustrated if I'm having like a long break even stretch in the game. So maybe my mentality will be better in the games, and maybe I'll do a little bit better. But I mean, I'm not planning to put tons of volume in these games, and I'm not like banking on getting any money from them. They're just very much being used as like my training ground to make sure that when I later in the day, later in the evening, when I go and play my main game, that I'm in good shape to go and play it, and I'm not too sloppy. If I just play all of my poker in the soft games, eventually my level drops. I don't play as well. So this is my attempt at maintaining my level of play. So maybe I'm spending 5-6 hours a week playing in these games, maybe even more than that, just maintaining my levels, making sure that I'm still doing things well. So then when I get in my good games in the evening, I'm producing my A game. I think it's money well spent if I lose. I think it's time well spent anyway. I think it's a nice idea for me to do. And it also means that I can play a little bit during the day because what I don't like doing is starting sessions at regular tables during the day when my session has to have a predefined end point. So say it's 1 o'clock, but I know I have to go out at 2:30 because I've got to pick somebody up who I'm caring for or what have you. I'm like, right, it's 1 o'clock, got nothing to do, may as well play poker. But then if I'm in good games, it really hurts me to leave. And like towards the end of that session, I tend to get more anxious about I need to get this fish quickly and not play as well, which can affect my win rate. So just firing these little like practice sessions in when I've got an hour to spare here and there, when I haven't got enough time to play a long session at soft tables, I could just go and think, right, just go and do an hour in there. Then it'll give me something to do. It'll kill some time. And it'll keep me sharp. And then in the evenings, when my sessions don't have to have a predefined endpoint, because I can, if I start playing at 11 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter if I'm still playing at 6 in the morning or what have you. Then I can put my time into my better games. So I think I've like kind of stumbled on something that's going to work really well for me. It certainly is as long as like games remain soft where I'm currently playing. And yeah, let's get into the hands and see how badly I can play, I guess, or see how well I can play. So this first hand, we're starting off with the Queen 10 of Spades. We've opened from middle position with all entirely standard. Yeah, I'm going to bet 60% party. Now, this is something else that I want to talk about because I've messed around with all kinds of like different things. Like playing bet sizing wise at the moment, I'm working on a 35%, 60%, 85%, 110%, like 4 betting buttons, and forever fucking around with them. But I'm just not a big fan of small C bets in single raise pots anymore. I think I've discussed it before. 3 bet pots, I think it's completely fine to use smaller bet sizes because the pot's much bigger, and the C bets do a better job of building the pot when we want to. They do a better job of making our opponents fold when we'd like them to, just because there's more money in the pot. So even though it's only 35%, you're still asking people to call a much bigger bet to stay in the pot. In a single race pot, you raise 2.5%. and you raise 2.5 bigs pre, and then someone's called, and then you're betting 30% on the flop. It's like, what is that going to be, like 1.8 blinds? It doesn't work for me. I mean, I get that it's solver approved, I get good players approve it and what have you, but uh, it doesn't take into account the human element of people just refusing to fold to like small bet sizes. So it doesn't work in like in terms of like getting good value, building a decent sized pot against when you want to do that, and it certainly doesn't work very well in terms of like getting people to just fold out air. Because they just don't. It works pretty well as a value sizing in terms of people never fucking fold to it, but it doesn't work well as like a C bet sizing to get people to fold their air. For example, in this hand, if we didn't have Queen 10, say I had something like 6-7 of diamonds or something like that, I'd bet and want them to fold. I wouldn't see ace high, maybe even king high folding here. There's lots of stuff I just wouldn't see folding, and then you get to the turn, the pot's still small, and it just gets really confusing and difficult. And I'm relatively experienced, so if I'm finding it difficult using these like small sizings, and then getting to later in hands and, as the cool kids say, lacking clarity in the hand, which otherwise means no fucking clue where I'm at or where my opponent's at, then I'm sure lots of you guys who watch my videos are too. So I'm not using small bets um, in single raise pots unless I know my opponent is a particularly tight regular. Then I'll just use it because why not? But yeah, usually I'm just going to 60% is going to be the smallest I'm going to go with my C bets, and I still use that at like a relatively high frequency when I'm in position. And out of position, I'm just still doing my mostly checking, but sometimes betting um if I've got a really good hand up against like a really passive opponent. So yeah, that's my bet sizing strategy at the moment. So we're going to bet here with our top pair medium kicker. Um, just tons of hands that just aren't going to fold for 3 blinds. So that's what we do. Turn is a 9, which is significantly better for our opponent than it is for us. I know my own range is pretty well. I don't have a ton of 9x in middle position. 9-10 suited, 8-9 suited, ace-9 suited. That's about it. He can have plenty of 9x that's defended in the big blind. I think it's a spot where he's going to check. I mean, he should definitely be developing some leads on this turn, but he doesn't. But we just need to be checking this turn back at a particularly high frequency. We don't have much 9x in our open range, and we don't see bet all of them. For example, I might see bet ace-9, but I probably wouldn't see bet 10-9 and 8-9. So we just don't have a lot of 9x in our range, and we should just be checking back very high frequency, which we do. River is a 6. He checks again, so now I think it's time to just go and be getting some value. Probably just from pocket pairs that didn't believe us, maybe some ace highs that just don't believe us. I mean, we've got a lot of like Jack 10 that's missed, club draws that have missed, just some random ace highs that stabbed, maybe some very small pairs that were just stabbing. And we just don't have a very strong range here. We can bet pretty big, I think, for value and expect to be called quite lightly in this spot. So we definitely have a bet. I go with the just over 2/3 pot size bet, which I think is entirely reasonable. It's better to get called here a lot and probably quite a few folds. Not many raises. What is going on here? I mean, this does not make an absolute ton of sense, really. What's our friend here trying to represent? I guess pocket sixes might play this way. A really, really elaborate trap with like pocket threes or a 9. But you would imagine that most of the time, after we check back the turn, like hands that were pretty good on the flop, that were like double checking, like pocket threes, like a hand that 9x that's turned into trips on the turn, would just lead the river because, like we haven't bet the turn. They might think we're giving up or just trying to get to showdown with a marginal hand. So you imagine most hands will bet this river, pocket threes, 9x, etc. So what's he trying to rep when this river comes down? I mean, to me, it's either a really elaborate trap or it's exactly pocket sixes. But there are like lots of other random stuff you can have, like Jack 10, maybe stuff like Ace Jack, King Jack, King 10, clubs. There's like lots of draws you can have. The problem we have with this is he can have all those hands, but how often is somebody playing a 17 VPIP in a speed poker pool then going to take this line? And this is like the issue where theory and reality tend to separate in microstakes poker. Because in theory here, he should have lots of bluffs. We've capped our range on the turn. Then when we're clearly going, then we're looking like we're going for some thinner value on the river. He can identify that we're going for some thinner value on the river, and that just raise here against a capped range with tons of missed draws that he can have. So in theory, he can have tons of bluffs here. In practice, in reality, in these games, that just doesn't seem to happen very often. But that doesn't mean we can just fold every time we value bet and get raised either. We need to be like, well, we've got to call some of the time. And this is where my game goes a bit shit because I don't really know what properties my hand wants to have here to call rather than fold. I mean, I guess having a 10 here is not really that much of a good thing because we want our opponent to have Jack 10 and King 10. So I guess having a 10 isn't great. I guess we'd rather have maybe a hand like fucking Queen 8 here that we'd never have from this position. So I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know. Ace Queen probably have that. King Queen, we'd rather not have the King, I suppose, because again we want to have King 10, King Jack sometimes. So I guess like outside of Ace Queen, Queen 10 is probably one of the better hands we're going to have here, I think, in terms of like our Queen X. So I don't know. I mean, blockers are confusing, but it feels to me like we have to look him up with something. We can't just call here when we have like full houses or 9x or what have you. So it didn't make sense to me what he was raising with. I just hoped he didn't have the pocket sixes, and I went with the call. Didn't think he had a 9. I kind of thought this is pocket sixes on nothing the way it's played. And it's hard to make a full house. So he didn't give it a little bit of thought, but we called and he had the Jack 10 off, and hats off to him for his tenacity and his willingness to take a punt. It didn't work out for him this time, but you know, I'm not going to disrespect a guy for at least trying to win a pot versus my range. It is not especially strong, but better than Jack High. Move on here. We have 2 jacks. He gets squeezed by someone called Micro Stakes. I'm not sure if it's the same guy who plays. Oh no, it can't be. He's got a Russian flag, and the Micro Stakes guy in Triple H from the UK, isn't he? So it's not the same guy. So our first question is: do we call here? Do we 4-bet, call it off, or do we just 4-bet jam? And as you can see, we looked at his stats, and he looked pretty aggro. Go back. I mean, I don't believe this 3-bet start on. I think that's a bullshit start. We've gone through it before on videos. I don't think it's calculated correctly, but I cannot be asked going into it now. But I'm pretty confident that it isn't calculated correctly. Anyways, that's by the by. So as these stats, he's obviously like a pretty active player. 26, 21. Steals plenty. Don't know what his 3-bet start is because that's nonsense. But it looks pretty active, basically. So then what do we do with our 2 jacks here? It's a pretty big size to just call. Jamming might be an overplay. Folding is certainly too tight even for me. And I'm someone who believes in like overfolding in spots like this in general, or like other spots in these games where the opponents are repping pretty narrow, but they just always tend to have it. I'm one that's usually advocated overfolding here, but I think that we just cannot fold pocket jacks here. But this is a pretty big 3-bet. It's 14 big blinds. Now I know it's a bit bigger because it's a squeeze spot and not just a 3-bet spot. But what do we do? I think against some players here we just call. Against some like absolutely insane nits, I don't know. I think against these guys, you need to 4-bet in spot some of the time. And the problem is like what size to go. There's already 20 big blinds dead in the pot. And if I recall correctly, I think I end up jamming here. And this hand's in because I just don't know. I just don't know if this can be a jam with jacks, or is it an overplay? But I would jam like pocket kings and ace king in a fucking heartbeat here. I would probably either flat or click it back with aces. Queens, jacks, don't know. Don't know. I'd probably be close to folding like 9s and 10s. But I think jacks and queens are like right on the cusp of things here. And to be honest with you, I just don't know. I just don't know. Against in softer games against wilder opponents, we have more options. So yeah, what would you guys do here with the jacks? I think all options are viable. I think like calling's probably the one most of you will want to go with. I think no one's going to want to go with folding, and I think jamming. I don't know. It could be too late. It could be too late because when he calls, probably not going to be in rough shape. Probably not going to be in great shape ever. He's not like he's going to call it off with tens here very often. It's rather going to be flipping or fucked a lot. But I think he's also going to be doing a lot of folding given the stats we looked at. So, how much are we compensated? How much? I mean, how often does he need to fold for us to be okay with this? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I ended up going with the jam. But it was just a spot where I didn't really know what to do. I did go with the jam in the end. He called very quickly. We run it twice. And we win both. So, I mean, it's not very interesting once the flop comes after that. I think the only interesting point in that hand is what to do with pocket jacks versus a 14.5 big blind squeeze. And I still don't know the answer. Just because we won, it doesn't mean we did the right thing, does it? Moving on to the ace queen offsuit. So again, it's just another pretty simple pre-flop spot. We have what looks like there might be a loosish player, but we can't be certain. Opening 2.3 blinds. We have another player who looks like a tightish regular, just flatting the button. Then we have another like loose, aggressive-ish looking player squeezing from the small blind to 13 big blinds. So what to do with ace queen off here? Obviously, flatting's out of the question. It comes to a question of do we cold 4-bet? If we do cold 4-bet, then what size are we using? Looks like the minimum we can make it is 23.7. Obviously, we're going to go a little bit bigger than that. But if you are cold 4-betting, what size are you going? Are you going to make it? Is there an argument for just folding here? Also, like the previous hand, is there an argument for just ripping? And there's like 18 bigs in the blind, 18 bigs in the pot, a lot of traffic, a lot of people to get through. But is ripping here with like the ace blocker and what have you, because a good blockers are strong hands. Is just ripping here okay again? And again, I don't know. How often do we think people are squeezing in the small blind versus middle position and button? Probably not a great deal. They probably should be, but I don't think it's actually happening too often. So again, I think it's probably more likely than not that Rasta Life has at least a pretty holding, if not a very strong holding. So what to do with the ace queen? What do you find, ladies and gentlemen, think of the spot with ace queen here? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to do, but it didn't feel like as good a spot as the last one with the jack, so I just ended up folding. But yeah, again, I wasn't sure if we need to be continuing in some capacity in this spot, or if we can just maybe it's just a fucking trivial fold. I don't know. Maybe this whole section of this video is nonsense because it's just the most trivial fold of all time. I don't know, but at least I was putting some thought into it, not just autopiloting. And I eventually found a fold that normally I would have found a lot earlier. Here we have two jacks against a tight-looking regular. We've opened under the gun. They've made it 8 big blinds. I'm pretty confident this is just pretty much a pure flat spot pre. Don't think there's any 4-betting going on here. And then we flop a full house, so I'm not really sure what this could be boring. Sorry, gents and ladies. Check. He comes out with the standard, hello, I'm a shit reg, 33% pop bet. Oh, hope that fart come through. That was quite a good one. I know some of you guys have been missing my farts on videos, so let's hope that one came through. Gone with the standard shit reg, and I say this in the nicest sense of the word, a bog standard 1/3 C bet. His range can still be like pretty wide here. He doesn't have to have just like King X. He can definitely have stuff like pocket aces. He can definitely just be range betting, etc. And we've got a full house, and we're just hoping he's got a king. And I don't know if we're supposed to raise here or not, but I think the problem is that We're not going to win a lot anyway, either way. If he's just like range betting here, he's usually just going to check back the turn at a very high frequency. Then we're going to be left with like a full house and 23 bigs in the pot on the river. So it's just what I'm just going to raise a lot and just hope that we find villain at top of his range or in a particularly spewy mood. We're hoping one or the other. Have a king or have some spew in you, basically. I'm going to go with a pretty small raise here to allow for that spew and also to allow like some of his, if he does have pocket aces, they just can't fold for this raise size. If he has any kind of draw, they just can't fold for this raise size either. So we go with a very small raise, super exploitable. Not going to be playing in these games much. Couldn't give a fuck. I'm just going to go with a really small raise. I don't think that's going to be in any way like good reg or solver approved, but I don't give a fuck about that. I think in these pools. I think it's a very reasonable play against the types of ranges and the ways these people play. It might just give him license to spew. It might just make him get really, really sticky with somebody he shouldn't be calling with if we raise larger. So yeah, it is pretty exploitable. I'm not pretending it's good, but I think it's effective. Do we get a call and the turn to brick? Me with my cursor over the number of big blinds, me figure out just like what bet size I want to make here. Like, what do I want my stack size to be on the river? Blah blah blah. So we're going to work out like to try and make sure we leave like a reasonable size bet, which is why I'm not using these buttons and I'm actually choosing a bet size. I like to go with the size that's going to leave around 2/3 pot for the river, which I think is more than reasonable. If we wanted to bluff here, which I would never do, by the way, in a 3-bet pot, once my check raise gets called and my turn barrel gets called, I'm shutting down here. I have 0 bluffs when I get to this river. 0. So even though I'm setting up where stack size where maybe I can get some bluffs through, in reality, I'm just not going to have any. I'm just going to be pure value betting this river. We have the easy shove. Well, I say it's an easy shove. At this point, like the issue is ace king now crushes us, pocket aces now crushes. So I say it's an easy value bet, but what are we actually getting value from? And I think like this is my reaction at the time. At first, like, oh great, full house, let's shove, and then it hit me just like it has now. Just reminding myself like, well, actually, what are we shoving for value from here? King queen, I guess. King jack obviously beats us. There's not that many hands that can call here anymore that have us that we beat. I think, pocket queen just sticking around, which it probably shouldn't do. But if it was, then it's going to hate this river too. So should we be? I guess we should. Again, it's a tricky spot because when you think about like, if we check, what bluffs is he going to have? Almost none. On the ace rivers, it's going to go check a lot. Or if he bets, if he goes all in, well, he's likely to lose to like I don't know quad kings, ace king, pocket aces, etc. If we value bet or if we value shove, what calls? Queen 10 suited, maybe calls. Maybe king queen. So yeah, I think like he can call with some hands that won't jam. Some of them, yeah, that's just a jam. But when you like to think about like how many hands is he going to call with, there's not that many of them. I don't think that we beat. And he did fold. So yeah, there we go. Move on to the next hand. We have 2 queens. Again, we've been 3-bet. This is one position further on the last time. We're middle position facing a cut-off raise. Cut-off 3-bet. Do I look at your stats here or not? I do. And again, this is bullshit start. Small hand sample. Nothing really much to go on other than he's playing 25-23, which is indicative that he's at least a like somewhat aggressive reg. He's not like some nit like me or this guy or what have you. I think we have a different question here. It's like, do we 4-bet or do we just call? And in these games on GG, I haven't been seeing the same on Party Poker, but on GG and some of that more loose aggressive guys on Triple Eight, the 3-betting a lot of pocket pairs here and just never folding them to 4-bets. So I elected to go with like a 4-bet here. The plan was probably 4-bet fold. And I think 4-bet fold because if he's 3-betting us with like sevens, eights, nines, tens, jacks, he's going to call with all of them most of the time and not rip them. But if he's got kings and aces, he's going to rip them all the time. The problem is he's also going to rip ace king sometimes. So maybe we can't 4-bet fold, but that was certainly the plan. 4-bet fold was the plan, I think, as knowing pretty safely that he's going to have plenty of flats with worse hands. Of course, there's now a trend for flatting in this spot with aces too. So he can obviously have aces when he flats as well, but if he has, then just sucks to be us, I guess. But I think 4-bet fold is fine here then. If he calls, just like getting the money in on favourable flops. It's just like a pretty standard way to go here. So he does call. We don't get a particularly favourable flop. I'm not too worried about the king because I think ace king flat sometimes, but also jams sometimes. I don't think he's got ace king at like the full frequencies. We block king queen pretty hard. So of course, whilst he can have a king, I'm not as scared of it as I sometimes would be, given that we do block king queen and he sometimes 4-bets. He sometimes 5-bet jams ace king pre. So he doesn't have like all the kings here. We check, he checks back. I think our check is fine here. I mean, I guess we want to be betting at a pretty high. I mean, here's the thing: I wouldn't check aces here, but I'm checking queens. Super mega exploitable, but again, it's something I just don't give a fuck about. I don't care that I'm being exploited there. I'm going to value bet aces. I'm just going to check queens and like try and get to showdown. Maybe do some bluff catching. Do some clubs on the turn. And opponent now decides to bet just over half pot. Not in love with this, but obviously with a hand that's got showdown value and a hand that's a pretty strong draw, obviously we can't fold. Pretty trivial call. River complete brick. And obviously check again. Our opponent deep in the tank. Finally shoves. So what do we think here? What excuse me, what should our thought process be here? And I'm not good at thinking these spots out to be honest with you. I kind of like get a bit tunnel vision from what I thought a player had earlier in the hand. I can sometimes get tunnel visioned here and make some pretty crummy mistakes. I was kind of ruling out King X, and I think especially now, well, not especially, but I think it's less likely as King X on this run out. I think he didn't bet the flop. He did bet the turn when the flush card came, and now he's like betting the river when the board's paired. So I mean, just I think single King X doesn't do this, doesn't take this line, but I think it doesn't make sense that he would check back the flop, and then if he had just had like a single King X, then bet twice when the board theoretically gets worse just for like one pair. So that didn't make too much sense to me. He can obviously have pocket tens, but I think pocket tens probably bet the flop at least some of the time, if not a lot of the time. Then maybe they don't bet the turn when the flush gets there, even though we know we just have very few flushes in our range. So I didn't know what to think. I guess at this point we'd rather not have a club because we'd rather like our opponent to have a queen of clubs in his hand. But you can still have just the ace of clubs. But again, it's a spot where how often are Pool finding a bluff here? I think the only bluffs that Pool's finding are like literally the naked ace of clubs. But so what does he have with that ace of clubs? So does he have like he's going to need to have a queen with it? Well, we've got two queens, so there's not many combos of ace clubs, queen left because what is this? Queen of spades, queen of diamonds left. So that's like not many combos at all. I think it's a spot where we feel highly incentivized to just like call because we're going to have very, very few better hands than this. I will have some king X that plays this way. I might play ace king this way sometimes. King Queen, and no, it's not 4 bet in there. So basically, what King X do I have? I have pocket kings that might play this way, ace king that might sometimes play this way. But again, it's a spot where we don't have many hands in our range and he doesn't. And usually it's going to be like something good versus something nutted in these spots. It's what makes these games so shit. Because by the time you get to this point and everything's been distilled down, it's either going to be he's got like a really nutted hand and we've got a bluff catcher, or he's got one of the very, very few amount of bluffs that you can have here that include the ace of clubs, and we just have like a a shit spot to call in. Because I'm a calling station, I did elect to call in this spot. I don't know if it's a good call or not. I guess we're blocking flushes. And he did have like one of the few combinations of hands he could have that would want to play this way that doesn't have us beat. Again, it's just another like relatively typical shit boring speed poker hand where when the big pots go in, it's usually just two boring cunts being close to the top of their ranges. It's why I don't like these games. I guess I wanted to do this rant at the start. Well, not rant, but I wanted to make this point at the start. But I guess halfway in, some of you will still be here. I'm playing these games purely for practice. I know I said this at the start. I do not recommend that any of you guys, get stuck into these games unless you're already doing really well in them. If you're already doing really well, then what the fuck are you doing watching my videos? Because I'm a fucking boring old nit. But yeah, they're not good games. If you're like a recreational player who doesn't have a chance to study much, and you're wanting to get into poker or play poker to give yourself a bit of extra siding, because let's face it, money's tough to come by at the moment. The cost of living crisis going on. There'll be a lot of people who are hoping to make a bit of extra money from poker to help pay the bills, etc. Especially the kind of guys who will watch my stuff, and working class people probably work very hard for their livings, and then still sometimes the money runs out before the fucking month does. We live in tough times, and there'll be quite a few people who are trying their hardest to make a few extra quid from poker just to help them pay the bills and what have you. That's a scenario that I think a lot of my viewers will find themselves in. And if you want to do that, you absolutely need to just like stop banging your head against the wall. If you're working full time, you can't find the time to study much, and you just want to play to try and like play your way out of a bit of a hole. These are not the games to do it in. Just play regular tables wherever you're at. If you play regular tables, you can then create your own environment, and it doesn't matter where you're playing. If you're diligent enough with your game selecting, as you're going to see at the end of the video, and we look at my results. If you're like, you can play on the toughest site, but if you're game selecting well, if you're playing regular tables and you're only like playing maybe 2 or 3 tables, so you can constantly keep your eye on the games on the tables to make sure they're still good. So you can constantly like make sure you're playing your A game because you're not getting over your volume. It's possible to make an extra few £100 a month, even from relatively low stakes poker. I don't think it's that possible if you're a recreational player with no time to study. I don't think it's really possible to have a positive win rate in these games. I think maybe you can just about beat the rake, but most of you guys, and myself included, we're just not big favourites to beat the rake in these games because GG is a particularly high rake environment. Yeah, you get a few rewards here and there, but but the games are just dog shit, purest dog shit. I'm playing them because they're dog shit and because I want to stay sharp and I want to, for the first time ever, I'm playing these games not really expecting to win, not expecting to have a positive win rate, and not with the intention of pulling money out of them at the end of the month. I find that I accepted these games are not good, but what they are good for is practicing. So I'm playing like a little bit lower stakes than I'm playing in my real games. So like I said, so it's like development money. But please, if you're in these games and you're recreational, just trying to make a few extra quid to help pay the bills, please get the fuck out of these games now. Not just Russian cash, but get out of the games on Party Poker too. Get out of fucking Poker Stars Zoom. Get out of the ACR fucking Blitz Poker, whatever it's called. You must play speed poker. I'd probably say Triple Eight is the softest of all the speed poker sites that I know of. But even then, it's not as good as just playing regular tables. Get the fuck out of speed poker and get the fuck into regular tables. Whatever you play, whatever site you play on, you will be able to find and create better games for yourself than you do in speed poker environment. And I'd rather have a win rate of 5 big blinds 100, playing 300 hands an hour than I would have a win rate of 0 big blinds 100, playing 1,000 hands an hour, and then just getting rate back or what have you. So that's end of rant there. Trouble loading my widgets. Well, I wasn't asking you to load my widgets, so how about fuck off? Anyway, back to the next time. We have 2 jacks. We get 3-bet by a very nitty looking player. Small sample size, pretty irrelevant sample size, but still 15/9. It's all we've got to go on. We'll be doing nothing but calling here, I imagine. Aha, right, I remember this spec. This is like this hand and the next time were both going on at the same time. And there's a bit of like they're both similar spots at the end, very similar pre-flop, very similar everything. And I end up doing one thing at one table and one thing at another table. And it's pretty much both the times just based on who my opponent is. So we have the jacks here against a relatively tight looking player who's 3-betters. You get a board that I wouldn't expect Button to have too many C-bets on. It's just not that good for his range. I mean, maybe. I mean, he doesn't have the straights, you wouldn't imagine. Maybe he has some sets, but we talked earlier about how some regs are 3-betting all pocket pairs. I'm talking more about the super loose aggressive guys, not these guys. I don't think this guy. I mean, maybe he is. Maybe these stats are accurate. But if he was 15/9 over a big sample, maybe he has a set of 9s, but not much else. So it's not a particularly good board for his range. We, on the other hand, can have all the sets. We can't really have any 2 pairs. I sometimes open 7/6 suited under the gun, but not very often. He has like an overpair advantage. We have a slight set advantage. He maybe has a few more draws than us too, because we don't have that many draws that raise under the gun and call a raise. So I'm not sure, but I think our jacks is just basically too strong to fold yet. Turn doesn't help us get away from our hand. An opponent bets again, this time going slightly more than half pot. I'm not loving it at this point. I think we can maybe just fold here against, if we had a bigger sample. Let's say this guy was 15/9 over 3,600 hands rather than 36. I think I would just fold here really exploitably, but we don't know enough yet about him yet. His sample size is just too small. Can't just go folding over pairs in this spot, I don't think. Even though I think it's highly likely the guy has like aces or kings or queens or something. River come to 7. And spoiler alert, we are just going to check fold here because I don't think this guy, when he shoves, is going to have it anywhere near enough bluffs. Because I don't think he has many bluffs to start with. I mean, his draws are going to include like 10x or flush draws. And someone playing 15/9, even though, again, sample size is small, probably just isn't going to have many hands that are going to want to like 3-bet this pre and then triple barrel as a bluff. Way more likely he's just going to have aces, kings, queens, etc. So we end up just folding here on this river, which I think is entirely reasonable, personally. The reason I'm tanking so long is because I had a decision on the other table too, which we're about to see in just a moment. We have 2 8s here. It's not the same situation pre-flop. Fuck me, it's not the same spot. It was the same river spot, basically, or a similar river spot. So we have like 2 8s here. We're just going to check our range on this board. Our opponent bets. We have a trivial call. Look at your stats. 28 to 82. Blah, blah, blah. You know, relatively loose, pretty aggressive player. Turns a deuce. Total brick, you would imagine. We check, sorry. He bets again, a smaller percentage of the pot on the turn, I believe, than his flop bet. But either way, pretty smallish bet. Again, we have a pretty routine call, I think. River is a king. We check again. Hoping he goes check, check, of course, but it's not going to. That's what's in the video. And our opponent now just bets like 150% pot, which confused me a little bit. And like, this is, I think, I don't know if it's a leak in my game or what have you, but I do tend to get a little bit curious in these spots sometimes. It's a bit of a strange spot because, like, well, it's a strange spot for me anyway. It might be trivial for some of you clever guys, but I don't know. It's like he's gone small over bet. Like, what value? I mean, if he's got a really good hand that wants to overbet this river, why is he betting so small, especially on the turn? Um, I didn't understand it. I mean, his turn bet confused me. It didn't confuse me at the time, but his turn bet, looking back, betting six big blind, betting less than half pot on the turn, and then over betting the river, it confused me. It didn't make sense. And when things don't make sense to me, I mean, it might make sense to a lot of you guys. This might be like really standard from him, but it just didn't make sense. Like, this doesn't. Well, betting less than half pot river, then 150%. Sorry, betting less than half pot on the turn, then betting 150% pot on the river. Like, what is this? What is this? I didn't know. I thought maybe it could be the naked ace of spades. We'd done a nice bluff catch earlier with our queens when someone had the naked ace of clubs. It felt like, and basically, I just put the guy in the ace of spades and decided to call. That's the bottom line here. And maybe just had the ace of spades, but maybe has it with another one as well. There's always that possibility, isn't there? I mean, I don't think this is a good call long term. Certainly isn't when the guy has pocket fives. I mean, nice hand, well played, sir. His turn bet definitely got him paid there. If you bet bigger on the turn and then overbet the river, I think I'd just have an easy fold. So, nice hand, sir. Nice hand, and well played, I guess. This is a hand you don't expect to see in a Reggie time video very often. We have the 6-3 of spades. You defend the big blind. This is something I've introduced into my game. Try to defend more blinds with these small raises because I definitely fold too much in the big blind. But I'm trying to improve on that a little bit and just force myself to play some more hands and just understand how the game works from a weak range in the big blind perspective. So we do call. I mean, maybe it's just a fold burst under the gun. I don't know. We check. And opponent goes with the standard shit reg 1/3 bet. I elect to raise here. I remember this hand very well because it could be complete fucking spew from me. Basically, my thoughts at this time were, I'm just going to rep a set. I'm just repping a set. He's got bet 1/3 pot. We have a pair, so we like block sets of sixes. We have a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, so we do have something to fall back on if he calls. And I just decided this hand, fuck it. A bit like Mike McDermott in Rounders, where he just decided, fuck it, I'm just bluffing Chan. This hand doesn't matter. I'm just fucking bluffing him, and sheer force of will is going to get the job done. That's kind of how I felt here. So I'm going to raise here, and we ain't going to slow down too often because I've just decided I've got a set, mate, and you're going to fucking fold. So hopefully he just folds, but he didn't, of course. So I'm like, oh, that's a problem because he hasn't folded. But fuck it, I've still got a set, so I'm just going to bet. Again, fuck you. I'm determined to sell the story that I've got a set. This could be fucking horrendous. This could be one of the spurious hands you'll ever see on one of my videos because it's not something I do very often because I'm just not in the spot because I don't defend bad hands from the big blind. And maybe this is why I don't because I just spew too much. So I went with it again. And he calls again. I'm like, uh-oh, this is a problem. I think the ace is a brick unless he has like ace jack or like pocket aces, which are never folding anyway. So I don't think the ace changes very much in terms of like, were we ahead and now we beat? No, I don't think we were ever ahead. The question is now, is the ace like I mean, a lot of our value range. You just say we were check raising and then betting with a jack. We wouldn't want to bet this river anymore with on the ace, for example. But will our opponent know that, or will he just like look at his hand like Jack 10, Jack Queen, Jack King, maybe some pocket eights, pocket nines that he's got stuff with, pocket tens. Will those hands now just fall to the triple? And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to fold. Maybe not even a Jack X, but yeah, I guess we need to try and make a Jack X fold too. I'm just going to try and make a Jack X fold or something worse than a Jack X. So, what size would I want to go? If I had like a full house here, not a full house, if I did have a set of sixes or a set of deuces, what size would I go here? I genuinely think I'd size down because I just want the Jack to call. So, if I had like 3 sixes or 3 deuces here, I could see myself, very exploitably, very shit, Not a good thing to do in general from a theory perspective, I don't think. But in just as an exploit in these games, I could see myself going like 1/3 pot here with like a set, just to like make sure or try to make sure that we got a call from his bluff catchers. But we wanted to fold, so I was like, right, well, I go smallish with my sets, but I want him to fold, so I'll go smallish but a bit bigger. That was my logic. Didn't think going for a big bet he would make sense because we're kind of being super polarized then. And I just don't think we need to bet that. I don't think we need to bet really big to get him to fold the types of hands I'm trying to get him to fold. So I ended up going with like can't remember exactly what it was, like 20 something blinds, I think. So I went big and then I dialed it back. Dialed it back a bit more. Is that all right? 36, okay. I think we can get away with smaller than this. I think we can get away with like 28 or something here. Don't think we need to go 36. But we did. Could be a punt of the year, but he folds very quickly. And I mean, that might be a really badly played hand by me, but we won it, and it's cool to show these things on video once in a while. We have the ace, queen of diamonds here. We get called, and then we're waiting for the big blind. Remember this hand? He squeezes to 13.2 blinds. We've had this similar spot earlier in the video. This is like a slightly smaller squeeze, and we have like a different type of hand. Don't think we can fold here. We're not in love with it. I don't think we can fold bet. I don't think we want to fold bet. We want to, don't really care what this guy does. He's playing pretty tight. He's not got a full stack. He's just a tight fish probably. So I'm not super incentivized to try and get this heads up. I'm really not incentivized to reopen the betting, but I'm not incentivized to fold either because our hand's really quite pretty. So you can see I'm looking at both players, seeing what's going on with them. I decide to call not before tagging a player, because tagging is important. And we get very dry flop. Our opponent bets less than 1/3 pot. I think he's going to do this with the entire range. And his entire range probably has us beat here. But a lot of it is going to not be happy when it faces a raise. That was my theory at the time anyway. If he's range betting ace king here, for example, he's not going to be happy facing a raise. Maybe he defends it still. Who fucking knows? Maybe I should just never, ever... By the way, spoiler alert, I am raising here. Maybe I should just never, ever have a raise here because what would I have raises with? I wouldn't raise pocket sevens. Well, maybe I would. Maybe I would raise some 9x too. Just like hoping that he's in the I'm not folding part. We're going to raise here. Hoping he's in the folding part of his range. If we maybe I would raise small here with a 9 or pocket sevens and just hoping the reverse, hoping he's in his not folding part of his range. So maybe we should just never raise here full stop. But I don't like just having nevers in my range. I don't like saying I never do this or I never do that. I just think it's lazy thinking and quite boring, to be honest with you. But maybe we just shouldn't raise here very. We certainly shouldn't raise here very often. I'm fully aware of that. Well, I think it's probably okay to have some raises. And 2 overcards in the backdoor flush draw. Maybe that's an okay hand. I don't fucking know. We're in dispute territory. We're in dispute territory with the 6-3. We're still in it with the ace queen. But I do elect to raise anyway. Fuck anyone who says it's shit. I don't really care. We're doing it anyway. Our opponent is eventually going to call. Turns a 10 of diamonds. I think we have one option here and one option only, and that is all of it. We're just going to be all in here. Yeah, our opponent can absolutely have pocket kings, pocket aces, pocket queens, pocket jacks, maybe pocket tens. It's now a full house. We're drawing dead, but I don't think we're drawing dead very often. I think we can still get some folds once in a blue moon. What I don't want to do here is check back and him just shove the river and it's just fold and whatever. We're just going to shove here. We set up stacks to shove. We want to shove for value. Why not shove when we've got some equity? And if we're drawing dead, then we're drawing dead. That's why we have a bankroll to cushion us when we punt it off like this. Opponent called pretty quickly. I was relieved to see he had 2 jacks. Wasn't that in love with seeing he had a diamond, but you can't have everything, can you? It's not a great spot for us, but we've got like 30% equity, so we're going to get there some at the time. I'm a wimp, went for the run it twice. My opponent said, let's do it. We absolutely rip it off straight away in the first one, so happy days for us. And then we just rip it off on the second one. This guy did not deserve that. You don't deserve to lose twice there in that spot if you're him. But fuck him. The pizza certainly delivered that time. And we're going into the last hand now, I believe. We have 2 queens. We open. We get a reasonable flop. Back to playing. Sorry, the last time was a bit slow. I forgot to speed the play back up on this second video. This is from my second session of the day. It's a different session. The 6-3, the last hand, and this one were played much later in the day against probably the same fucking player pool now in GG. Anyways, we flop pretty well. Overcard, flush draw. We go with a pretty small bet. Don't love these bets, but as you talked about earlier, I don't think they do a good job of getting folds when you want them, but I think on monotone flops they work better, because if I had opponents just need with like any random, I don't know, like fucking ace 10 off with no diamond, it's very likely just to fold it, etc. We just didn't like get players to fold stuff that have bits and pieces of equity against us. Maybe sometimes it gets us something value if he's in here with, say, I don't know, fucking 2 random hole cards with 1 diamond, etc. So I don't like these bets, but there is a time and a place for them, and that's it. This is now, I think. He like raises to 10 bigs, and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on here? We have a queen of diamonds. We have with no folding. Maybe there's some just like 3-bet in our hand here to like maybe we get it in against the naked ace of diamonds. But I think a lot of the times we don't. We just give it in against flushes and maybe some sets, but probably not. So I'm already just in like bluff catcher mode with my hand here, because if he's value betting, we need to hit. And if he's bluffing, then we don't mind him bluffing, because his most likely bluffs are going to contain the diamond, and either we block him getting there if he's got the ace of diamonds, or if he has a worse diamond, then we sometimes get there against it. And also if he's got a hand like, I don't know, XX of diamonds that are both lower than the queen, then maybe we get to stack him on a diamond. I don't fucking know, but basically I'm just not folding. Turn pairs board doesn't please me that much. He continued being pretty big, around 80% pot. Not in love with it, but clearly not folding. You can tell I'm not in love with it by how long I'm taking to call. River is a total brick. He shoves after a bit of a tank. There used to be a tell back in the day. Not sure if it still is anymore, because people play so many tables. Like I said, reliable. Back in the day, like if someone tanked for ages and then just fucking ripped, it was just pretty much always value. And that's nowhere near as reliable these days, because who knows? This guy might be fucking 4-tabling this pool and 4-tabling another pool, and he might just took ages to get back to this hand for him, or it might be a tell. Who knows? Either way, it doesn't really matter. The question is, do we just call here or not? Are players doing this, taking this time with the naked ace of diamonds? Maybe sometimes. How often? Not at full frequency, I don't think. Not even close to full frequency. Obviously, we lose to full houses now if his check raise is set. We lose to a full house or quads. I think this is just a fold, to be honest with you. I think he just has too many flop flushes. He has too many full houses and not enough bluffs. I think it's just a fold. I really do. Don't think there's much else to be said about it. But I called. And this is like one of the, in my opinion, one of the only mistakes I made in the session that frustrated me. I quit shortly after this because I was really unhappy with my call here. Just fine, who knows? Maybe we have the best hand sometimes, but just nowhere near enough against the check raise, bomb turn, shove river. It's just way too nutted, way too fucking often. And there's just not enough bluffs there. And I was really quite annoyed with myself because I've been doing really well lately in kind of this being disciplined, like not just in terms of like the hands I'm folding with, but I've been doing well, forcing myself to defend more hands pre-flop than I normally do, forcing myself to 3-bet more, forcing myself to open more buttons, forcing myself to open more small blinds, because I've got so many bad habits from like playing speed poker so long, where I just speed fold everything, so I don't defend my big blind enough. I don't steal enough from the button. I don't steal enough from the small blind, because I just got into a really, really bad habit of just waiting for good hands and just folding way too many buttons because I couldn't be asked to wait, folding way too many small blinds because I couldn't be asked to wait, not defending anywhere near enough big blinds because I couldn't be asked to defend them. It's like, just move on, you know. So I've been trying really hard these last few weeks, or last few days especially, to get my game into much better shape in these practice sessions. I just like, wait, right, it doesn't matter about volume here, it doesn't matter about anything. The only thing that matters is you playing really well and having like lots of just maintaining your confidence really high. And so I've been doing a lot of those things. I've been opening way more small blinds, way more buttons, defending way more big blinds, as we saw with the 6-3, making way more disciplined folds, etc. Just making sure I'm thinking things through better and not autopilot. And that is the whole point of what I'm doing here, is just don't fucking autopilot, Reg. Just the whole point of these sessions is just to play really well, play as well as you can, and then take that game into your soft games. And so therefore we're just always keeping our like A game topped up, if you will. So I was really disappointed with this fold because I think it's quite an easy fold. And I didn't make it, so I quit shortly after this because I was annoyed with myself. And then, of course, our opponent just had the fucking nuts, because that's what just happens when players take those lines. They're just nutted very, very often. Anyway, that ended the video on a negative note, or ended the review section on a negative note, but it's not been a negative time at all. This is how the month's gone so far. That's in big blinds, because we've been playing we played 4 different stakes already this month, 25 days in. All in EV. I'm pretty sure we're running a bit higher because of like that last GG session. We're pretty similar to that last GG session when we just clearly had bad results in terms of orange line, but did okay in green line. Green line is very, very good for me, which is usually an indication that I'm playing pretty well. And if we look at this just in money, we're already up like whatever that is, 300 quid for the month. 330 odd quid for the month. So certainly can't argue so far. It's going well. And this is just like the breakdown by stakes. Again, sample size is irrelevant. Heads up, there's no heads up tables. That's just when you sat playing. Heads up on a ring table. So we've got this is party poker for the month. You know, small sample. Again, just practice money. This won't be my win rate long term. This is GG. Again, just practicing. This won't be my win rate long term, -22. This is probably somewhere where it'll be, break even. Maybe slight winner, slight loser. I don't know. I'm hoping slight winner because I'm going to be trying really hard during the practice sessions. And this is like the main game we've been playing so far this month, which is the 50NL on an iPoker skin, where it's gone really well because I've been game selecting really well. This is not my win rate. This is not close to my win rate, but we'll take it whilst we'll take the heat whilst it's there. You can see by my stats, I'm trying to be more loose aggressive than usual. 23, 20, 9% 3-bet. They're all above what I normally get to. Trying to get my fold to 3-bet high. I'm not going to go through all the stats. I'm really happy with how it's going so far this month. I'm really happy with how I'm set up at the minute with the speed poker during the daytime to maintain my my skill levels, and then playing the bum hunting in the evenings, when hopefully there's plenty of bums around that we can just relieve of their money. So yeah, it's going really well. Really can't complain. Very happy with the situation. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. This is just going to be a video. It's obviously not been a live stream. It's not going to be one of those premiere things either, because I sat and watched the whole fucking last one and about 3 people talked. And I don't watch my videos back, so I ain't doing that shit again. It's going to be a normal video that goes out. There maybe be another video on Monday, depending on how much practice. The only times I'm going to make videos is when I do these practice sessions on either Party Poker or GG or what have you. So I'm going to make videos from them. I'm not going to make videos from my other games. Because when I'm playing, I just want to be able to focus on playing. And I think the videos do better in hand reviews when we're actually looking at the tables from the client rather than the Holder Manager replayer. So in terms of table views, they work better if I just record my live play and then just like edit a video to just show the hands that I want to show. So they're only going to come from my practice sessions. That's what we're going to be reviewing, all the practice sessions. So if I'll record every one of them. It depends how many I have between now and then. I mean, it's Thursday now. I'm hopefully going to be just playing over the weekend, mostly just playing my regular games and trying to make some money. So whether we get many practice sessions in before then, I don't know. But every time I get some practice sessions in and there's a few hands to review, I will do them. I will do videos about them. So hopefully there'll be one coming again soon. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. Stay lucky. If you watch this video before 10 p.m. on the 5th of May 2022 and you're based in the UK, please head out to your polling station and put your cross next to anyone that isn't a cunting Conservative. I don't care who you vote for. Fucking Labour, Lib Dem, Greens, Independent, Monster Raving Louving Party, Lord Buckethead. Don't give a fuck. Just go out and fucking protest vote against these Tory cunts who are ruining my fucking country. So yeah, do get out. Do fucking vote if you watch this in time. If you ever want to repay me for making some content that you enjoy, do it today by going out and voting anyone but fucking Tory. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend and goodbye for now.